Look at what we've done, everybody! Welcome, everyone, to the LJL Officially Unofficials coverage of the LJL 2021 Summer Split. I will be your host for this afternoon's games. Must one, joined by my illustrious analyst of this afternoon, Melvin. Actually, it's in the morning for us, but afternoon in Japan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. It should be a fun match we got up with some surprises that we got a few minutes before going live. I'm sure we'll talk about very shortly.
Oh, absolutely, we will. But obviously, we are here to cover the match between Axiz and Crest Gaming Act, Melvin. And I mean, this is kind of a crazy place that we've ended up. I mean, Axiz ended up third place, and Crest Gaming Act were at the very bottom on actually a minor loss streak towards the end of it. Like, this was not how anyone expected to get here, especially if you looked at the beginning of Summer Split.
Yeah, let's really not go back and look at those pre-split predictions because I am not pleased with Axiz in 8th place right there. You know what? With the context of the season, things change, and they changed for the better for Axiz. They have gone from a team that was struggling, to say the very least, last split, to absolutely eclipsing the league, managing to take games off of the best of them throughout the entirety of the split, constantly sitting up there in the 4th to 3rd place, and they finally do finish up there after tie-breaking with V3.
Yeah, I mean, this is a roster, this is an organization rather, not a roster, but an organization that has struggled historically in the LJL. They've only once made playoffs before, and that was in the lower side. They were a 5th and 6th team, I believe, when they first made that in 6th place. I'm sure Naimara is hearing this and is going to tell me off for misremembering this. But they have made playoffs this time upper side, and that means because they beat V3 Esports in that tiebreaker match, that Midnight and Max Formal Casting brought us on a Wednesday afternoon. They actually get side selection, and this looks like a roster that can probably just win with blue side, right? Like, this is a team that can just win with advantage, and what a surprise that they ended up. 3 rookies on this roster, Melvin.
They have got a sum total of 12, and count them, 12 playoff games across the entire roster. And that's only 2 players that have it. I believe that is entirely centralized on Hogler and Honey. So realistically, looking at this team, coming into, for a lot of them, their first time in playoffs, it has got to be a lot of pressure for these new faces.
Now, we've been gushing about Axiz here for a little bit, but I'd love to switch over because, sir, Crest Gaming Act, what's going on with them, and what's that news you alluded to?
So, we were looking at this, and we were ready to hype up the matchup of, you got the carry that is Honey for Axiz, and then it's Nathan up in the mid lane for CGA, and that was going to be how they attack the map without these wacky picks like the Anivia, these kind of things that they use to defeat Axiz. Turns out,
great storytelling. I love it.
Turns out, in the last week of the split, Nathan walks his way down to support because I believe it was Alchemy not feeling well, Not great. Happens. They didn't win a game. He played Rakan and Shaco. Now we get into the playoffs, and he's reprising his role as the illustrious support for this series. And it begs the question now, how will CGA be able to compete if they physically can? Because a lot of what we're putting the emphasis on was having Nathan in the mid lane. Taking a look at a lot of their stats on here, those are their mid stats.
I mean, mid stat wise, they are phenomenal, but support stat wise, they are pretty disappointing. I love the nod there. Huge shout out to our graphics guy, Chris, who's also producing this show. I love the little Shaco picture, just to kind of silhouette and really hammer it in. I mean, first among all LJL and unique champions. Like, this man has played more than anything else. Well, tied, and I'm assuming he'd be tying with someone like Dasher or Arya at this point for unique champions in the summer split. But huge kills participation rate. This guy's always on the map. But I mean, let's be real. Let's compare him with the other side, and the man that we are interested in talking about on the opposite side for Axiz, that's Honey. And this is a player who has some of the most incredible stats in the whole of the LJL. Scratch that, actually, Melvin. The world.
This player has some unruly numbers to their name. Let's take a look at them right now. You can see on their primary carries of the Aphelios and the Jinx, KDAs of 10 plus, kill participations of going on 70 and 70 plus, damage share. Looking at this, they're equivalent to 2 people's damage in a team, which yes, you expect of these card champions, but still, those DPM numbers are world class to say the least.
And he's still 100% win rate on that Jinx. Like, it is just flawless performance from Honey. He has become the hyper carry that, honestly, I always expected when he first joined the LJL way back in 2020 in Spring Split. I was like, oh my god, this guy, to initialize a Nightmare, I need to go back and get those clips now because I look like the biggest 5-head brain ever. I was like, this guy is going to come in, he's going to change everything. His first year, his rookie year, was not good. It was not good. He looked a lot like Milan with Misfortune. I think it's a perfect comparison. Sometimes okay in team fights. Kind of didn't have a great laning phase. He's now destroyed any of those expectations that we had coming into the 2021 Spring Split, and then has defied just logic when it came to summer with some of those stats, right? Melvinism. I would like to know, first things first, more than anything else, what is your current prediction for this matchup?
So initially, I had put 3-2 to Axiz, and that was on the main thing of because of the sheer exponential number of games that CGA had in playoff scenarios. They were at 75. It was 75 in their original roster with Alchemy. It has now gone down to 51 with the changing of Naked to support, but that's still a lot more than Axis's 12. Even botching a third of their numbers, they are still above Axiz far and away. So it is just a massive difference that in a playoff scenario, the pressure these players can be feeling right now is immeasurable.
Yeah, and this, as you saw on the screen, was everyone in unanimous agreement. We're expecting an Axiz win. The score in which we get there, we're still all slightly disagreeing on, except for the recent news of Nation. We're all kind of skewing towards that 3-0. If you have got your predictions in our Discord, you can join the link right below this Twitch stream. If you're watching on YouTube, you can jump in on the action with everybody else. Just go into the comment section down below. There'll be a link there. You can hit that link, join the Discord, and join our lovely community that we've been building there. Now, we talked Honey. We talked that Nation isn't playing mid, and that means we're getting a substitute mid laner coming in, and that must be great for the Axiz mid laner of Megumin, who has been having some pretty impressive, has a pretty impressive resume when it comes to his mid AD champion pool. Don't ask him to play other stuff, really. LeBlanc's fine, but his Renekton, my dude.
They have been very impressive on this Crocodile, being able to not only secure solo kills early on in the lane, but just having a massive impact in these team fights. They have almost took the role of the archetypal top laner and been able to use it in lane, and just pairing up with Hoglet in the jungle at least gives Axiz some degree of early game to contribute towards feeding Honey eventually.
Well, that's the plan, right? You want to get that hyper carry super fed, and you need to keep feeding him further. And they've been doing a great job in actually doing that, because the huge amount of pressure has always been put into Honey. But I know we're missing one player very important and very particular, and a player that you actually wanted to cover here. And that was Hoglet. I mean, the jungler for Axiz, we know he's one of the main voices in the communication. He used to do a lot of the translation work in Spring for Honey, actually. And it's just hugely important to kind of emphasize the impact that Hoglet has made between this old Axiz roster and the transition period to the new one, because he's the only remaining piece.
And I think part of what has helped them really start to shine in this split is some of those discussions saying that Honey is actually now stop needing the translation in game and become the primary shot caller, meaning that Hoglet is unlocked to make those independent jungle decisions early on, focus on the skirmishing with these champions like the Lee Sin, the Olaf, the Diana, but most importantly for me is the Viego, one that is so scary in the current meta and is now just locked in the jungle role. Hoglet makes this champion absolutely insane with their laners and just the ability to act as a secondary carry with far less resources than Honey has. But take a look here at some of these stats. They are almost always up in XP, almost always up 2 camps at 15 minutes, which is significant for getting to item breakpoints, and they are just everywhere for this team.
It's just an amazing fact that Hoglet has just been improving from leaps and bounds. And before, Melvin, we hand it over to our lovely casters, which is going to be our very own, the man that one of the 2 men that I also started this little shindig and fan project with, Nymera, and our brother from a down under of Midnight to bring us this action between Crest Gaming Act and Axiz. We've got some awards to give out. The first ever truly done awards for the LJL where we've planned this and actually done a bit of polling and actually asking people. It's crazy what happens when you build a community. We have the LJL OU's All-Pro team, and I hope the graphic is ready because I'd love to just see it come up on the screen and announce who our players are. In the top lane,
it's beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful.
In the jungle, it's Steel. In the mid lane, it's Arya. The hyper carry we're hyping up for this match in question is Honey, and in the support role is Gang for our first All-Pro team for the LJL, officially unofficial. And Melvin, congratulations to all these players as well. And what's some of your thoughts on these players?
Funnily enough, you may notice a trend that everybody's wearing that black and blue except for Honey. And there's a reason for that, is because they are the only player realistically in the league that even in the mid-split discussion was up in this tier. But frankly, just everybody on DFM has took this massive cataclysmic win streak. I believe they're on 12 now, including the tiebreaker. Yep. So they are just looking unstoppable at this point. And there's a reason that only Honey can even attempt to contest with them.
He's been that good that recently that this whole split he has proven himself, and it's honestly just a wonder to kind of think about that. Let's quickly go over and show, if we can, Chris, if we're able to, our second All-Pro team, and then we'll zip on to our third and coaching team, and then we'll hand it over to Nymera and Midnight to hopefully bring these games. And hopefully we're planning this and doing this all right on the fly. Ladies and gentlemen, the live production is always a special thing. Our second All-Pro team is Kinatu in the top lane, Hoglet in the jungle, Dasher in the mid lane, Utapon in bot lane, and Corporal as a support. 2 Hawks players, finally. We're seeing some Hawks players at other playoff team. Haven't seen anybody else from Crest Gaming Act yet. So, but we've got Hoglet in the jungle and Kinatu hugely showing. What's some of your thoughts on these players?
Obviously, Dasher is my favorite player on there for just how well they have been performing. Mr. Consistent, but to keep it located on the series we got today, we did at least get one more player that we're going to be seeing. That will be Hoglet. Go ahead.
Gotta cut you off here because I've just been told pick and ban phase has actually started. So we're just going to hand it straight over to Nymera and Midnight. Gentlemen, good luck with the pick and ban phase and take it away to both these teams.
Thank you very much, boys. Very entertaining deaths, but we are diving right into Axiz and CGA's best of 5 series here. And powering through the picks and bans, I think it's important to note Honey has gotten his 4-0 Jinx, and Nimoy has gotten his Thresh.
Yeah, and of course, Nemo hasn't been feeling great recently, but Jinx Thresh, that is a hyper carry combo. I'm so glad to be back onto these playoffs for yet another time. I don't think we've ever seen a best of 5 between these 2 teams. In fact, Axiz, well, it's almost certainly at that point, Axiz have only ever had one other playoffs match. That was in spring 2020. It was a blowout, 3-0 to V3. So they're really looking to come in with a bit more power in this time. This might be Axis's golden generation as a team that have struggled to find form in the LJL in seasons past.
Well, hopefully they tackle the first best of 5, because of course the best of 5 series, there's a lot that can happen, right? And I know a lot of people, myself included, are putting Axiz in a strong position, stronger, knowing that Nakyun has been put down in the bottom lane for that support role. So we'll see how these two go. Let's take a look at the first 3 picks, because obviously we didn't get to see them.
Sure.
I think the big thing for me is Viego, with the highest ban rate in the LGL, is first picked by Axiz. Like, he got through the banning phase.
And both of the star carries from Axiz, Hoglet and Honey, have both got great picks for themselves in the meta, in the LJL for themselves as well. By all metrics and by all perspectives, these are champions that can pop off and kind of carry the game solo, as we saw. No, Honey's DPMs were through the roof. What surprises me even more so is he does that on good gold, but not all of the team's resources, not absolutely everything. His gold efficiency of a player this split has been incredible alongside those damage stats too. So looking now at the other team, you can see that the Renekton is there to just flash W the Jinx. You look at the the Misfortune and the Zoe too. I'm sat there looking at CJ and going, okay, they know exactly what they want to do. They want to make sure that Jinx can never stand anywhere safely in a team fight. I just don't know if they can actually successfully do that against the power picks which Axiz have already drafted.
Yeah, the bigger concern for me more so is to see Trundle picked up here by CGA is the Thresh. We know Thresh is the perfect facilitator for any immobile AD carry courtesy of the Lantern, and yet that was completely let through there in the fear of, you know, the Aphelios. And even the one ban from CGA I find a bit weird is the Ziggs. Honey doesn't play, like, he does play Ziggs, but he has played at this split, but it's not one of those champions that you look at it and you think, oh god, Honey's on Ziggs.
No, exactly. I think that it goes against what Honey wants to do on this team, what Axiz want to do with Honey. You know that they want to play that hyper carry bot side. We've always talked about that. So at the very last pick, Megamin going towards a pick which we haven't seen this split from them. We saw it a bit in spring, and I'm not gonna lie, I was not impressed by the Zir coming out of Axis's mid lane. It just seemed like he could get shut down. It looked like he wasn't doing very well in lane. However, against similarly rookie archetypal mid laner of Kaito, there is a chance he just says, okay, I'm not up against an Arya, a Dasha, a Seros from last year or whatever. And maybe you can survive that laning phase a little easier and feel a little better against it. Who else has picked up something interesting though? It's Cassin for CGA, locking in the Kha'Zix, which means that it is going to be a Trundle support.
And I haven't seen either of these champions in a while now. Typically, when you see Trundle, he's locked in as, you know, the answer to some beef bowl like the Olaf or an Ornn or something like that. But I'm looking at the composition that Axiz brings to the table. There's only really Inno as the target for the Trundle there. But Cassin's Kha'Zix, this should be very exciting because it feels very much more that if you leave Honey alone for a millisecond, Cassin will find him, and Cassin will eat him.
Oh, there is never going to be a point where Honey is going to be left alone. Maybe under turret, farming out a couple of waves at some point in the mid-game, but I just don't expect Honey to ever be left there. This is the Protect Mr. President. What is going to make that interesting, though, is because we're going to have to talk more about this Trundle. Trundle support, you max E, you get a hilarious amount of slows. You can actually interrupt the Lantern as well if you're quick enough on it. I think that Trundle support is not just there for the anti-tank capabilities as well. It does give you the ability to pick off something like those carries which are more vulnerable if they are left again to the lonesome. If you can isolate them forcibly, that's where problems start to come in for Axiz. Very interested though to see how Nation does down on this bot side, because we expected them to be mid. Of course, they put in Kaito. Alchemy not playing for this series and wasn't playing for the last week as well for CGA. How much can Nation actually bring to the table for CGA, and how much can he upset Axis's all-star bot lane?
Well, you'd hope Nahun being Nahun will be able to go well. Like in the mid lane, we talk about him, he's a really good mid laner in that he provides a lot to the team. When you looked at, I believe it was his damage share, it wasn't the greatest out of all of mid laners, but he was often involved with his team and he's really proactive, even when he plays the more supportive stuff, like he was rocking the Karma and the Anivia, stuff that you don't look at and think, oh, he's gonna 1v5 carry this game. But Nahun does a good job setting up for his team, and that's what, in the support role, it's your entire job, set up for everyone else to look good.
And I think the thing which Nation brings to the table more than anyone else is versatility. We've seen it in roles, we've seen it in unique champions picked as well. He's played to 11 unique champions. That's the highest in the LJL, tied with Crash from Sengoku. So he's up there as one of the most versatile players across the entire Rift in the Japanese region. And while doing that, he's kept up a huge kill participation comparative to other mid laners. You know, he's got something like a 72.6% kill participation. I believe only Dasher is ahead of them, and we know how hard Dasher tries to solo carry that team. Of course, looking over at some of the stats that the official stream had on as well, Cassin's numbers have been pretty incredible. We kind of looked at Cassin and we said, yeah, but he does die a lot too, though. I believe that you picked out that Cassin has died more than anyone. I think CGA players have died more than anyone else in the league because they fight that often. Cassin first and foremost amongst them. But he does do a lot of damage because of that.
I mean, yeah, but when you're rocking the highest death stat in the game by, oh, I can't do maths on stream, about 7 deaths more than anyone else. Second place is Hoglet, who's actually facing him in this game as well. Like, these two junglers combined have died over 100 times in the LJL. And now we're seeing them play. Hoglet getting his hands on the likes of Viego, and Cassin on Kha'Zix. I kind of hope that they meet for the, you know, the 315 Scuttle Crab, and it just turns into like a 4v4 brawl over a Scuttle Crab between these two. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from these guys.
I love that. But you see, the vibe I get with it, surely it does go to that point, but then I kind of look over at CGA as a team and as an organization. They've never fought well early. Pretty much never, actually. You know, I actually really like Nap as a player. I really like a lot of CGA's lanes as players, but not actually in lane. When you get to team fights, when you get to mid game, yeah, awesome. You know, we've talked about Alchemy and Nap. Of course, Alchemy not playing today. Always finding the AD carry in team fights, making things very interesting, even with hilarious deficits. As we see them come up on stream, they might have given themselves the tools to fight early, though, like he suggested.
I'm hoping so. When I see the likes of a Kha'Zix, even with the new Gore Drinker build, which personally I'm not a fan of, but I see why it does work, and with Cassim Rock and the Conqueror, it's what we're going to be getting. I still want to see Kha'Zix's play super aggressive. Because you need to, right? Your whole identity is as an assassin, you're going to find someone and you're going to ruin their day. If you're going to sit back in the lane, you know, in the jungle and farm for 20 minutes, you know, there are junglers that do that great, like a Master Yi, but you're playing the Kha'Zix. So I want to see aggro again. I want a 315 Scuttle Crab just skirmish. That's all I really want out of this first game, honestly. Like, just bloodshed everywhere.
Yeah, so I know you're talking about, okay, you want the Kha'Zix to play aggressive. Let's see how much you can burst people out and stuff like that. Well, kind of what the jungle mentality has changed towards with that is that it's in the same way that Lee Sin goes for Conqueror as well. If you run into a Lee Sin or a Kha'Zix or someone else like that, they just get to keep wailing on you, and they know they win the extended trade, so you just don't go and find them. As soon as you see them, you go the other way, because as soon as they start stacking that Conqueror, you realize you lose that fight. Heck, even Nidalee goes for it nowadays, and that should tell you a lot of it. So Cassin, try to see what havoc they can wreak, and see if they can stop Hoglet from reaching those points of powers we've known him to get towards.
Yeah, well, starting on the top side of the map for now, and it looks like actually Axiz are just waiting in the bottom lane here to boot. And the bottom lane should be passive, well, passive from the Axiz side at least. They get harassed down a little bit, but I don't see Milan and Nakyun on their own actually being able to, you know, pick much of a fight there. The Trundles, while he's annoying, it's not technically an engage, so I feel like Cassin is going to have to come visit the bottom lane if anything's going to happen. And
I mean,
we both know leaving Honey on his own isn't the best decision if you're trying to stop him from getting to that late game.
No, for sure, you're right. But on the other side of it, it's a tier starting Comet MF, which is going to poke you out every so often, but that's kind of it. I mean, I look at that, I'm thinking, yeah, the team fights are going to be, again, really potent, as CJ have often towards, but they have to get there first, and they're going to have to get there through, again, the region's premier hyper carry AD carry, and that's in a region with a lot of them. He's doing some damage over to Milan.
Yeah, Milan getting caught by that hook there. Bit of a problem, but should be able to sustain up. Still has one more health potion, so shouldn't be in too much trouble. And it is a... Oh, hold on. Nap is playing aggro here onto Inno. What a surprise here. The two top laners who both sort of get left alone. I feel really bad for Inno half the time, man. And... Oh, no, Cassin. Are you going to... Oh, this is going to be bullying season.
So, I mean, Meganot is coming at some point. With the chunk that Nap just took, this is probably not going to be that advisable. Let's see how much rage Nap can stack up, though. Hasn't got the empowered W right now.
He knows. Yeah, he knows. Inno's running for it now. Cassin will jump on the Inno. Does get one bounce, but it might not be enough. But Cassin Oh my god, Nap! The immediate flash, Ino realizes that Nap was hungry for a bite.
So he dashes through, and of course, when you don't have your empowered abilities, your abilities do give you that rage as well. I was wondering if he was going to slice through, get the rage from that, and then get the empowered stun, really bursty, yada yada, stack up Conqueror, dead. Nah, still, flash away from Ino, and as you were saying, you feel bad for Ino quite a lot. At least they are on the Gnar, which can neutralize lanes. Kind of hard to shut them out of the game completely, but to go down memory lane just for a little bit, as it looks like both junglers are recalling, so we're not going to have any action for the next minute or so. I'm thinking back to spring 2020, when I was first introduced to Nap and to this region as a whole in a lot of ways. You know, I had watched it before, but then I came into this region and thought, hey, let's go cast it. Let's go get in touch with some of these players and try and learn a bit about them. Nap from the spring regular season was good, stable, decent, but not really the explosive player in the team fights that we've known them to be. I think he had something like 1 solo kill in the entirety of the split for spring 2020. It might actually have been none at that point. He hits playoffs, he gets 7 of them in 2 series. This guy, when he gets to that playoffs level, is the big game player in so many ways for CGA. And I know that we highlighted Nation as well. I think that he has been the star carry this season so far, alongside Caston, who's been putting up magnificent numbers. But when it comes to playoffs, just keep that in mind on Nap. He has been a big game player in the past.
Yeah, but of all people he's trying to target down and kill, it is going to be Ino using Hoglet, trying I think just being annoying more than anything on the bottom side is what I was going to try and say. Is our two junglers are, come on, all right, it's not 315, but it could be a fight. The 2 junglers will butt heads, and meanwhile the bottom lanes will get involved as well. Hoglet backs away, but Honey is looking plenty healthy, looking for some damage down. Milan is taking fire as well, but we'll back away. It's Casson forced to jump in over the wall. His CGA look like they're getting the worst end of the trade for the most part and will back away completely.
So Hoglet misses out on the W flash, or the flash W rather. Actually, no, it is W flash. We'll go with that one. Casson just getting away with the leap. I think he gets hit by, gets stunned on the other side, but sadly is out of range for Hoglet there. So early game, tussle towards the bot side going in the way of Axiz, it would seem, because they are going to get themselves a dragon. Also being lost out on the other sides of the map, however, I mean, nothing really. There is no counter. It just seems like a brute force by Axiz with no response by CGA.
Yeah, CGA, after being forced to back away from that last situation, well, they might lose something, though. Nap is level 6, Ino is only level 5, taking down low, but the turret will keep him plenty safe. But he's got a completely abandoned ship now, with Casson lurking in the wings. There's every chance of a kill, and yeah, Ino, again, I want to talk about Ino a little bit. This guy has got the roughest weak side life I have ever seen in my career. Like, you've got, you know, Honey, we talk about Honey and Nemo in the bottom lane, how important it is that the hyper carry gets online. Ino has to spend his entire game plan basically saying, okay, am I getting dived? Is someone going to try and solo kill me? What do I have to give up to make sure Honey comes online? Like, this guy is the least amount of gold in the LJL from out of top laners. Like, it's ridiculous what this guy's giving. And he's on Gnar duty of all things.
Well, so that's why, because, you know, post 15 minutes, you're just going to be sat there like, oh, Honey, here's a wave for you, sir, Honey. There's all for you here. On the other side, actually, you know, one of the stats I was prepping and going, oh, wow, it's interesting how gold is being prioritized. CGA give most of their farm over to Nation when he's playing mid lane. He's got something like the highest post 15 CS share of mid laners, but he's in the support. He's going to be ganked, and he doesn't really. Oh, he does have a way out. He's got a flash. That's quite helpful in those regards.
Yeah, it gets that in one piece. But look at the positioning of this wave here. Milan and Nahun are in a really awkward spot where they want to get ganked, right? You need to have something in this lane because the poke from the MF is good, but it's not enough. And so Casson's like, well, let me come and help you guys. Look, what's CC if we got to gank this bot lane? You have a Trundle pillar. Cool. I'm not coming bot lane.
Wow. Exactly. Which is why I'm looking at CJ's comp and I'm thinking, okay, again, team fight's pretty nice. And also having a red side MF is really important too, because if you have MF on red side, much like having GP on blue side too, it gives you really good ways to contest stuff like Baron, right? Because what MF wants to do as opposed to GP is stand over the wall and put down the ult over the Baron and just say, look, you can start this objective, but you die for it. In fact, I believe it was one of the very first games of the split where Milan had their massive pop-off MF game from from so far behind, when they had been crushed in lane, when they had been losing time and time again in the 1v1 scenarios and the 1v2 scenarios, ulting waves defensively, gets to one Baron fight, gets to ult over the wall onto 4 people, suddenly chunks out 4,000 damage in one team fight. That's what you cannot allow to happen. Kassin going a bit boldly towards the Herald, but it hasn't led to anything right now. Might lead to something between the 1v1 top laners, though.
Yeah, Nap's in trouble. It's not a 1v1 because Hoglet's deciding to break the honorable code. Kassin jumps in, tries to save his top lane, but it's not fast enough as first blood comes through. But Ino will lose his life. Hoglet's like, well, do I want to be here? I might. Megamin is coming up there. Hoglet getting the stun down, but Nahyun is pretty tanky, but not tanky enough when Megamin flies up there. The Death Rocket goes a little bit on the wide side, but with securing 2 kills here for Axiz, they might actually be able to look for that Rift Herald, started, of all people, by Kassin.
And it starts, of course, with the 2 highest DPM junglers in the league of Kassin and Hoglet. Hoglet really putting in some damage there, and it seemed like CGA just a bit lackadaisical, just a bit slow to respond to what Nap wanted to happen around that top side. They were caught out, they were isolated, and though Kassin starts the Herald, it is going to be finished by Axiz. CJ losing out in the early game trades around neutrals both times, and it seems like both times they didn't have a cross map available. They were just sat there going, yeah, we can just go fight for the objective, except, well, no, they couldn't. Nap is taken down and the first reset comes through. At that point, you are really not looking forward to the fight after that point, because Hoglet does have the extra reset on the Heartbreaker strike, gets out a simple stun, doesn't even need to be empowered, and Nation goes down after that.
Yeah, it's the fact that Nation goes down at the back end of the fight after everyone's pulling away is probably the bigger heartbreak, right? Like, okay, you can survive losing Nap every so often. It's not great, but it's not the end of the world. But then you lose the Herald, losing, Nahun was why you couldn't even look at another bite of the Herald, because then Axiz say, hey, you've lost 2 members, it's a free objective for us, Hoglet now has his Divine Sunderer. It's starting to fall apart a little bit here for CGA in that early game.
It is, but it's still within touching distance. This is not nearly the worst deficit this team has gone through, let me tell you. And that's actually now a point which I'm going to bring up and that I'm going to be tracking from this point, which is how far behind is too far behind for CGA? And I think actually they are pretty happy most of the time to be taking later game fights as long as they keep it within arm's distance. And this is exactly why Axiz want to force the issue. They ult defensively. Honey takes a lot of damage.
Yeah, but Hoglet was able to posture forwards. Their Herald comes through, the Lantern for safety. Axiz, this is purely a posturing for gold here. Again, Honey with an early bought Cole as well that we didn't get to talk about. It's all about just getting more and more golden diamond, getting that Jinx to the 2-3 item spike that we all talk about when it comes to that champion. And I like 3 items. What's your preferential item on Jinx? Because I'm always a fan of the 3.
Kraken Slayer PD is enough to get you rolling. At that point, you're fine. 2 item spike on the AD carries, fantastic amounts of damage. Doesn't have it here. Doesn't have a dragon right now as well, as that's taken away by CGA, and they flash out to safety on the side of Milan.
Yeah, just the flash, honestly, for securing your first dragon of the game, that mountain, is going to be nice, but...
Oh, come on.
Milan might be in trouble. The Lantern... because you can smell the Lantern. Oh, no, it's not over! The flash engaged. Milan's going to go down, left on their own without a prayer to save them.
Certainly not. And herein comes the counterpoint to, oh, they're within touching distance. Maybe they can make it towards late game. Well, maybe not if you have a really fed Jinx and Viego for your 2-star carries. Axiz making a real statement here, and I know that I thought that the lower bracket is actually quite close towards the bottom 4 teams, thinking, hey, all of these teams within touching distance to an extent, maybe Axiz is higher, maybe CJ a little bit lower, but they should still be able to contend with each other. But right now, Axiz have complete control of proceedings.
Yeah, and part of it is we didn't get to see it as much, but I want to go back to that drafting phase. The fact that you've kind of done the LPL style of giving the enemy team exactly what they want and saying, hey, can we beat them at their best? Can we beat at Honey on their undefeated Jinx? Can we beat Hoglet on the most banned champion in the LJL this split? And so far, the answer is, well, no, doesn't look like you can.
No, certainly not. And, the team which I first supported and continue to support, so, my first love of League of Legends is SKT, right? I was brought into League of Legends by seeing Faker montages. And then I saw the All-Star event in 2014, where they allowed the Chinese representatives their perfect composition. They beat it. And then they took it in the second game and they beat them harder with their own picks. There is something about the mentality of going there is something about the boldness and the mentality sitting there and just saying, yeah, we'll beat your choice picks. We'll beat the Jinx. We'll beat the Viego. Sure, we have an answer to that. Much in the same way that so many different teams in best of fives have taken one game to say, let's see how much we can affect the ban phase going forward. Let's see if we can bring out something. Maybe we can get a play. We're not going to get that this time. But again, just keying into that psychology of what these teams are going through. It's going to be a long road. It is a best of five, no longer in the best of one stage. They're trying to set themselves up for success.
Yeah, and talk about setup here. I'm seeing a setup die coming through. Milan is getting flashed
Milan.
on. Hoglet has no chill today as he'll grab his 4th kill of the game. Will likely die. No! Doesn't even go down to the ignite. That's gotta be single digits. But makes it look good and gets away in one piece.
Didn't even need to get that extra soul to go personify after that point. Didn't get the healing from the reset, but this is now a really good adaptation for me in terms of like the next level. Axiz pick themselves their hyper carry, AD carry. They pick themselves a backline that's going to keep themselves at range. So CJ say, oh, we have a misfortune. We're going to zone you out with an even longer range bullet time. And then Axiz just say, well, we're just going to dive you over and over because we know what happens when Milan plays a misfortune. We know that he just sits and defensively ults waves. Every time we shove in a wave, we're going to bring in our jungler. We're going to go for an aggressive dive because CGA effectively think that they've kept themselves safe just by saying, oh, it's a misfortune. We don't need to bring people down to protect them. Well, you do against this team. You do against these champions.
Yeah, and taking a look at the stat that has been brought up here, it works quite nicely that we see the two members sitting on 6k apiece are the two Axis, so, you know, the stars, I suppose you could say, that we've talked about time and time again. Honey and Hoglet, both sitting on that 6k mark. And CGA, again, it's not looking bad for CGA. At 15 minutes, you kind of hope to be about the 5,000 gold mark. The problem is that Axis have more. See, Cassin actually steals away the Scuttlebug and says, no, that's mine, buddy.
And this is just in time for Herald too. Noah getting picked. This is a big power play for CGA. Yeah,
they time it as well. Wait until it's the last possible seconds to slam him with that TP now coming through from Mega Min in a 4v5. Inno is charging up the Narbar, though. This still could be a fight Axis if they are feeling confident, but they might lose their mid lane, and that's a hell of a chunk of damage.
So CGA find themselves a set of picks around this Herald, get themselves the Scuttle at the very first part. That does help. Again, it gives you a little bit more terrain control, having extra movement speed, very important in these fights. Though Axis had control over the neutral objectives up until this point, CGA find themselves a bit of a window to get themselves something of an advantage. Does it really change the way things are going to go after this point? No, you're not going to get plate gold. Potentially, this can allow you to open up a mid lane out of turret. We could see that Milan was using that ultimate under tower to try and force the Mega Man away. But CGA don't immediately pull that trigger. They don't immediately go towards that structure. Because again, that might be a realistic objective they can get themselves. And that might give themselves more of a platform to fight later into the game. But they don't achieve it just now.
Yeah, I think staying onto it isn't a bad idea, because look what Axiz has done. Axiz have said, look, you can take the first Infernal Drank of the game. We don't give a damn. We're making sure that Honey gets as much gold as humanly possible here. So basically just sacking the second Dragon here. And Inno is surrounded by enemies, yet is still pushing his wave. That's a ballsy play there.
That. Look, as you know, I'm a mid laner, but I moonlight as a top laner so often, and I do apologize. Most of the time, they are ranged top laners. I play a heck of a lot of Quinn. Sometimes you just have to go clear that wave. Sometimes you just sit there and go, no longer will I be weak side. No longer will I be denied the farm I am so rightfully desire. I desire that, and you know, does just go up and get some pressure. But is this going to buy them an approach towards mid lane though? They're not here for the fight.
Yeah, but Axiz are taking down really low. The Herald will get the charge off there. It won't take down the turret, but it might as well. The bullet time even coming out of CGA. They want this damn turret. Axiz, though, they can smell what is cooking. Honey is rocking up there. And now CGA have actually taken enough poke. I think they might be forced to back away there unless Kaito gets some nice damage down with the paddles. But the death sentence, goodbye! You've thrown your last paddle star. This fight is Honey. Might be able to get some more cleanups. Will they get excited enough? Zap not connecting. Another beautiful flash from Milan to get them out alive.
Again, I appreciate the start of this play. You realize what the objective is. You realize actually taking down mid-outer turret gives you much more control over the map to stop Axis slowly farming up and choking you out of the game with their side lane pressure. But they just overstep. Kaito, rookie mid laner coming in for CGA, steps up a little too far. Gonna go back into this replay and see exactly how it transpired at this point. And Kaito is landing really good damage. I feel like he's emboldened a little too much by it, though. You just used your flash. You just used your portal jump as well. You don't have the safety to walk into something like Nemo's Thresh. Catches them out, rightfully punished. Axiz, take a freebie.
Yeah, you can see what he was trying to do, though, right? Like, you've got a sleeping trouble bubble
Exactly,
with Honey.
of course you can.
You've got to take it.
Logic.
But unfortunately not. Now, Honey, sitting on 2 items, didn't go for that Phantom Dancer that you were looking at earlier, but instead said, hey, I need a little bit extra range, which I don't actually hate in this game here. Again, you've got superior range of Zoe, superior range of the MF. I like the idea of Honey here trying to combat it.
I mean, yeah, Fire Cannon is not an item you buy for stats, ever. It is the worst Zeal items in terms of stats compared to, you know, the Hurricane, which is very good against very short range, but low diving kind of compositions, where you can kind of hit multiple targets. You have the Phantom Dancer, which is the best single target damage in the game that you can get for an AD carry alongside the Kraken Slayer, because again, you get a couple of auto attacks in, you get even more attack speed to start chunking through the Kraken Slayer passive, but the Fire Cannon does allow you to get that one tap onto someone important, particularly if Viego's diving in, looking for that first reset. This is a double reset composition from Axiz. That first auto into something like the ultimate can be so important. Milan tries to defensively ult, only gets to clear out half the wave though.
Yeah, but Hoglet taking them pretty low there. Kaido did do their, their shenanigans over the wall, and that should force Axiz back for a little bit here as the J-Ram continues.
Yes.
What a surprise coming through. As it wasn't a J. Can you call it J-Ram when Inno and Nap are just hanging out in the side lane together, sharing stories?
I mean, the cameras here, we're here to will accept it.
Oh my god, that's dead.
Forward.
Yeah, that's dead. And Honey's like, all right, let's do this, boys. Getting the kill on Milan, and now CG8 forced to flee for the hills. Their Dragon spawning in a minute and a half, so Milan will be right back up, but they're going to lose any and all objective controller down here.
They are, and they lose their AD carry. No, they didn't have their ultimate. It wasn't going to be the worst thing ever as the white flag goes up. Ultimate blown from Nation to Axiz, getting freebies across the board. And I'm not going to lie, in 2020, I was very much a CGA fan, and CGA fans might be quite happy with that. It's actually, no, nothing comes of it. But before that, in 2020 spring, we had our Cinderella team. We had our princess story of Axiz finding their 0-6 to playoffs run, the miracle run in the LJL. But it didn't really go any further than that. And I've kind of missed it. I'm not going to lie. I missed Axiz being a relevant team and a team that I could get behind because they're so unique within the scene. And I'm not going to be biased. I like both of these teams. I think that both of these teams are incredibly potent team fighters. But I do quite like Axiz's story, and it's great to see them reach this level of form even in the first round against an opponent which can coin flip our heads or tails, and CJ haven't turned up massively to play right now. Good to see you on form, Axiz.
But from the side of CGA, remember that this is a best of series. Now, CGA, we talked about it coming into this. Their players aren't exactly unfamiliar with how a best of series works here. So even if they do lose this first game, which is why I wasn't entirely against the idea of, hey, give out Hoglet's champion, give Honey their champion, and let's see if we can beat them at the best. Because if CGA was able to go toe for toe here, how devastating for Axiz players would that be? Honey's now, he's got his Jinx, you've given the Jinx Thresh combo over, and you've lost. That would devastate these players that aren't maybe as familiar in a best of series. So I think CGA can look at this game and say, okay, well, we can fix up our drafting as damn kind of hits.
Yeah, Kaito's landing skill shots, and
another.
You've set up the point. Let's see if CGA can capitalize. Cassin does have the evolved Q, and of course has the evolved W as well. But Kaito jumping forward too far.
Oh, Nap goes for the engage, and a double combo. Megamin coming in from the flank there, and free hitting on the backside is Honey. Milan tries to do what he can, but the bullet time buys nothing as CGA is wiped off the face of the planet. Goodbye, Cassin. You are the sole survivor, or perhaps I should say you were the sole survivor, because Honey and Megamin ain't letting you get away in one piece.
Inno's had enough of being weak side. I called out Nap because I thought maybe they were next to get a turnaround, but that was just after, of course, the huge Mega Gnar from Inno. Says he's had enough, and of course, it's the dual carries sharing the rewards. 502, 503, Hoglet and Honey pop off. CGA looking to try and deny them this win on their preferred combos, their preferred champions. Well, maybe they won't be doing that in a game too, because it's looking like it's steamrolling towards that direction.
Yeah, it's got a bit bad for CGA here. They're like, okay, maybe we can try this. Hey, we set up around the objective first. We were able to start getting a little bit of poke down. It wasn't a bad setup from CGA. The problem was the engage coming in from Axiz. I don't think they realized Inno was so willing to burn their flash and fully engage here. And then the flank from Mega Man. Watch the flank here, because it catches Kaito, who's trying to do his job on the sideline.
Exactly.
Watch how everything goes apart at the same moment. The flash and the Emperor's Divide. There's no running away.
There isn't. And I think another real big facet of this replay in particular is, I mean, you look at what Kaito was doing at the start, and this is not the first time, even within the last 5 minutes, where they've just gone a little too far looking for some opportunistic poke. I appreciate it. You get to sleep onto Honey, onto Mega Man, maybe something turned around. But this is your difference between a Kaito who is a bit more green, a little bit less veteran, and someone like your Dashers, your Arias, who are much more... what's the word for it? Not reserved, more responsible with their lead. Understanding that there is a time and a place to look for the godlike play. As you can see there, he's got himself a bit of dank damage, but you wish it would have been a little bit more than the 420.
Yeah, and that's just because we saw the hook come flying towards him and realized, oh crap, I can't be here, I gotta go. And by the time you realize you're not allowed to be there, half the time it's way too late. There's damage coming through here. Again, this isn't too surprising here. Other than maybe say, oh, how's Milan matching damage? He's playing Comet Misfortune.
Yes.
That is where the damage is.
The thing is that, like, you are never going to deny Misfortune from doing damage. Oh my gosh, you're not going to deny a Honey either, though. That's one W that hit Nathan. That's kind of scary. This is an Imperial Mandate Trundle. This is not tanky. Doesn't even have anything remotely tanky on their side. Nathan is going to really struggle at this point to do anything in this game. That's the hook.
That was dirty. Nathan is going to get eviscerated. Okay, so Thresh is being banned next game.
Yes, Hoglet, yes.
Hoglet's having a good time here. When you're playing Imperial Mandate Trundle, you've got to have a good time. Never mind he's playing Viego. Never mind, scratch that. Obviously, it's...
Well, you get to take it for a little bit. It's like, so... Put it this way, there used to be a lot of jobs in, like, department stores where, like, you just turn up in the morning and they just send you to whatever aisle or whatever department needed you in, like, the mega stores. I mean, that's basically what Viego is. Like, hey, I'm here. What do you need me to do? Well, can you be on Imperial Mandate for the next few seconds? Can that work for you? Yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. Just trolls and then goes back to being just the flying squad.
So far, Hoglet and Honey unkilled this game. And actually, even Mega Man, a player who I wasn't really ready for. So... Oh, this is the why we don't have to see Nathan being executed like this.
But I think we do. I think we do at this point because
is it blind? No.
Where all you walk here, it is just on vision. I believe it was just spotted on the edge of it. It looked like it popped up there, but no one was already walking into position and saying, "Yeah, someone's probably walking around here." Just walks up a little too far, and you don't have that degree of safety. This is a problem when you're behind. As a Zoe, where you don't get the real angles you want, is a problem against a Thresh, against the longer range composition of Axes outside of that Zoe as well, when you're behind.
It's... Kaito, as you're talking about, isn't really allowed to do anything this game, and he's not the only member of CGA who you look at and you sort of wonder, well, what are they actually allowed to do in a team fight here? And specifically, I want to talk about Cassidy. Now, I love the Kha'Zix jungle when it's played aggressively, but unfortunately, he's not been really allowed to do a whole lot this game. It's been very much, oh, I've got to throw out some abilities and then I've got to run away. And that's partly because Axiz is at no point have they looked split up here. Even now, you know, it's, instead of farming, he's just like, yeah, I'm going to hang out with my team.
And so following on from that, because this keys into a lot of different things too. I mean, kind of talked about, oh, Zoe's behind. When you lose first turret as a Zoe in the mid lane, you can see the mid lane outer turret is still available for access, and there's a turret on your side of the map now to add insult to injury. You don't have the ability.
Oh, Honey!
Oh God! Oh, you just can't do anything.
He kind of tried to do something, but it didn't work. Cassin on a bouncy castle to freedom there. Will get out the ignite burning, and CGA losing their mid laner. We talked about there maybe being a bit of green behind the ears. Well, unfortunately, that little bit of green got Kaido killed.
And it did. And again, it's just another time going too aggressive, not understanding the damage you can put out. And yes, maybe if the Jigs didn't have 6 kills and you didn't have 3 deaths with not much kill participation yourself, you can pull off that kind of play. Not nearly in this situation. It is an infernal rift. You don't have the walls to work with the Zoe. You lost your first turret. You don't have the positioning to work with Zoe. And you're against the extended range. This all applies to so many different champions in CGA because now you're pushing at the inner turrets, like you were saying. It's so much shorter distance to clump up, to get all of that farm with whilst also deathballing at the same time. So not even the Kha'Zix can have anything to say about this game. they're going to try and finally get towards that mid lane out of turret, but they don't even have the safety to do that.
Yeah, it's a death push though. If CGA can make this work, it'll be great, but unfortunately Axiz, they smelled it out, and whatever chance they had to deny Axiz a look at a Baron isn't really going to, result in much. As the stat came up before, and you can obviously see it in items. I do want to talk about it one final time, as Honey is actually leading the charge on the Kaido. He does have flash, it should be fine. Honey basically has 6 items. We're not 30 minutes into the game, and Honey is looking for their 6th item, Bloodthirster.
And again, I know that it's new age AD carries, and you've got boots put in there as well, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's not oh yeah, whatever. This is still 80% crit at that point, it's getting towards 100. Yeah, you get tagged by that W there, Kaito, you're gonna die after one more auto. This is the problem you've got, even as, again, as this poor Zoe at this point, who has tried to play the aggressive players and found themselves overstepping on so many different occasions. The Jinx gets to turn around onto the Mage so quickly at this point. With this kind of lead, it's 1.5 items to 4.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a rough thing for CJ all around here. The only thing that I think CJ has going for them, as it is 10,000 gold difference, is the fact that they are away from the Elder Dragon threat, right? They've got 3 dragons.
Oh, they have Soul Point. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And then you realize they're 10k gold down. This has to be a miracle steal from Cassin if he's willing to, jump over the wall and flash in. But I don't see how Axiz ever let this happen. They've got vision on it, but Cassin has flash. Oh my god, can he do it? Oh my god! Cassin, you're a beast! Takes the Baron! Says, you may take my life, buddy, but I'm the one who comes out on top!
Okay. Alright. Getting hot here, getting spicy. Not ready to go just out of this game just yet. Cassin finds the steal against the odds. Gotta throw it out there. Still losing someone. I think that Axiz might have been able to stay on the map and use the 5v4 advantage to still get something out of that, which is why I'm like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Axiz,
they drop their guard.
They don't goal keep for long enough. Cassin uses the invisibility to get the approach slightly more unseen as well. Blows an ultimate, blows some HP bars. Actually, that's very important afterwards. That damage means that Axiz can't stay on the map. Cassin gets so much value out of that steal. All right, CJ, not quite done yet.
Oh, I mean, they can buy time now. That's what this Baron is for. They've got 2 minutes to get as much farm as they can get in their members. And when you're 10,000 gold down, that's what you need to do, right? Get some farm, get some items, get back into some level of relevancy because, well, at this point, Honey is, I think Honey is richer than, Milan and Nahun combined. And I wonder when they're going to go back for the next item, which is not something you want to see.
I'm pretty sure there are stats actually that you can check on the live game stats on all esports for the live total of the goal, which I might be tempted to do actually. I'm looking over and thinking, nice.
It's looking good for Honey one way or the other there. Again, I'm pretty sure their final item, unless it's a weird, Hydra build, which I know some Jinxes like to do for the AoE on the AoE rockets, but,
No, not as well. It's almost certainly going to be the Bloodthirster, because you know that basically the one thing that can't happen to you in any circumstances, you get one-tapped. That's the very worst scenario. And yes, if you have the Thresh Lantern with the Guardian on top of it, that's unlikely to happen anyway. I think at that point, though, it's still your optimal damage. I guess you have to 100% crits. Just much more happy to go for that. I mean, the one thing is, of course, you'd be missing something like a Lord Dominic's Regards, but when you're this far ahead, I don't think you give a rat's ass.
No, not really. I'm a bit surprised how far away Honey is from that next item, though. He's been sitting on this for the last couple of minutes here. 343 farm at 32 minutes. That's bloody impressive. But not surprising, but bloody impressive coming in here for the Axiz hyper carry. And I think we may have a fight coming through because Honey is trying to get through these damn minions. Oh my lord!
Damage.
What is that damage?
It's 3 item, lethality, misfortune, firing out the ultimate. You know that's the only fight potential, though. They do get damage onto the support and the AD carry. They don't find anything there. Namo potentially killed!
Yeah, that's going to be the Thresh gone, and now Axiz are actually in a really awkward spot where I don't think they can contest the dragon, but they have to, because as you said before, it's Soul Point! You have to contest
I mean, Megaman has flash, potentially a divide coming in. Honey looking for the weirdest of flanks.
Not sure it's going to work. He gets double bubble. The dragon is also on the focus. That dragon is going to get secured down, and that might be a spot of a problem as Axiz, Jacob with Honey, needs to stay alive there. Has the minigun. Will it be able to fight it away? Does it the body block of Ino? Ino is keeping Honey alive, but he gets choked down by Nap. Is Nap able to do the damage output? Cassin is still on the prowl as well. Kaito does damage output. Cassin gets caught by the zap. That's a disaster. CGA going to go down here. No, he wants into it! You can't run into a Renekton! You can't do that!
He thinks he can get the turnaround, but Nap with the point blank stun kills off Honey and Axiz when they have the firm hand on the steering wheel, on the rudder, or whatever is driving the direction of this vehicle plummeting quickly off the cliff. They lose all sense of control. It starts with of course, with the chunk into mid lane with the ultimate from the Misfortune, but Cassin picks up the Thresh. Suddenly you're playing without the Lantern, without the extra amount of CC to lock someone in place and get someone excited right at the start of the fight. You don't have a Meganar at the start of this. You see that CJ just say, okay, cool. Well, in that case, we can go for like a Q-Smite combo onto the dragon. They get it. You've got the extra combat stats. That's pretty impressive at that point. You also don't lose someone at the onset of the fight, really, and then the onslaught begins after that. Honey, you can see why they're trying to get that last auto, the last amount of damage to try and get another reset of the passive. But you can get punished so easily at this kind of HP, and they don't have the Bloodthirster just yet. Yes, they do get some HP back every now and then, but honestly, good guy Scuttlecrab giving the extra stack of the E for the dice alongside the slice for Nap to get in. And what did we say about Nap? Nap and Alchemy, we said, always find the AD carry. Well, Alchemy's taken a back seat onto the bench for this series right now, but Nap finds Honey.
Yeah, and that death onto Honey there is... Well, it puts a bit of an awkward spot on his record when it comes to his jinx as well. It's like, damn it, I'm now gonna have a death under my belt. Poor guy, yeah. But...
Well, just saying, Jinx, Honey's average deaths per game on Jinx are 1.25, so he's not quite, he's still pulling down the average just about, and you can see the hilarious amount of damage that Honey gets to output if they are allowed to stand and fight, and will they be allowed to now? Has Flash!
Oh, gets him into the wall, that's 3, they're diving on top! That is gonna be a rinse and repeat, CGA! Oh, trying to fend off the best they can. That ball time gets denied, though. Now, Cassin does the best he can. Honey, no! Honey is protected! Honey is staying alive, courtesy of his support, doing his damn job well. That is gonna be CGA, despite being able to secure themselves the Infernal Dragon Soul. They lose the fight, and Inno! What a flank from this Gnar!
What a flank! They've been finding 3-man ultimates throughout the entirety of this game, and this fight honestly felt a little bit like Thresh difference as well. They don't kill the AD carry. They don't get the ability to run in and shut down the Jinx, who does have the Bloodthirster now. That does have that full build, and Axiz get themselves a full house of members into the enemy base looking to take the first win.
Yeah, Nap is going to have to do something, but unfortunately, it just doesn't matter. He dies on top. There's a lot of healing. There's no healing cut, but Axiz will not lose a man, and they will take the first game in our best-of-5 series here.
Axiz, I mean, felt like a bit more work than it really needed to be. To get the 10,000 gold lead, thought they were going to slide into a clean finish. CJ showing us once again why they are one of the premier team fighting teams in the LJL.
And I must say that CJ's ability to firstly stack the dragons, right? Because we saw Axiz basically abandon the early Infernal Dragons. Say, look, we don't want them. For example, the first one they gave up, I believe, because they had Honey and Nemo top lane to get that extra little bit of gold, which it looks great. But then the fact that they gave away the second, or dragon number 3 technically, is like, okay, now at no point can you not contest the dragon. Because, well, the soul is the ever threat. And can we just appreciate the smites from Cassin? Secures the dragon in a contested situation for Soul. And I think the more important one is the one we've got to talk about. That bloody Baron Steel stolen the game out.
It does. And what it does is it just elongates the game to a point where maybe they can, again, kind of reach that late game state which we know them for, where they can occasionally pull out the Miracle team fight. Didn't quite happen. It wasn't like the Miracle 5 for none because the Misfortune all kills everyone. And maybe that actually secures you the game at that point. Still, enough to make you just a little bit worried for Axiz, who are coming in as favorites. I thought they'd win 3-0. You know, our predictions across the board were for Axiz, but we'll have to check in on that a bit later.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think I put Axiz 3-1 coming into this. But I look at that game and I'm just a bit nervous because a lot of us, and myself included, when I learned that Nahum rotated down from mid to the support, was like, okay, this is a problem. Like Nahum's good, don't get me wrong, but I would prefer Nahum in the middle lane and Alchemy down in support role. Like,
and you can see the difference in veteranship when it comes to looking for those poke combos. But I think Kaito had some great damage, but for every good bit of poke they had one massively egregious overstep, and that cost them in several situations, which set them very far behind.
yeah, and those next games, you can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. Yes, I suppose you could say you kind of got away with them this game, right? Like you were behind when those mistakes were coming through, and it was already a bit of a rough situation. You bounced back great, but coming into the next game here, I think that Kaido really has to say, well, is the poke mage, is something like a Zoe that lacks mobility the right answer for me in these mid lane matchups?
Well, the question is, what's the comfort? What are the professionally ready comfort champions at this point? You know, we've had. I mean, Megabin was a player that came in as a Z main to the LJL, and it took them a while really to find their comfort zone. I think the Azir was okay this game, but again, it's not really, you know, like the Lee Sin and the Renekton, which they've really managed to thrive on in the past. But you know, you can see actually again that CJ don't have a way to even really keep Megaman down at that point. So CJ maybe have to go back to the drawing board a bit. They did go for a risky draft. I hope this doesn't hit them in their mental state too hard, because this was going to be a game against Axiz comfort champions in a lot of ways, particularly for their star carries.
Yeah, I feel like if you're especially on the side of CGA, you can't, as you said, you can't let this game hit you. And even if it's as simple as, again, you kind of gave Axiz everything they wanted. I don't see why you're banning, for example, the Ziggs we talked about in Champion Select. I don't like the Ziggs ban here. Like you've given Honey one of his undefeated champions, 4-0 on the Jinx, 4-0 on the Infelios. You removed one of them. And I think the other ban was LeBlanc, if memory serves, for that mid lane section.
Yes, it was, yeah.
But the Ziggs just feels out of place for the identity that we've sort of looked at Axiz. So hopefully you fix it up a bit. I think Viego is the other thing you have to look at. You don't give Hoglet Viego. That's just sinning.
And also the other side of it is also, I mean, there are plenty of champions there which kind of thrive in the situation which CGA set up for them. I mean, even Inno on the Gnar. You know that Nap is a strong individual player, particularly coming into the big name matchups. You know, I kind of cast a gaze back historically to Spring 2020 playoffs, where this was a player that didn't solo kill at all during the regular split, maybe one, and then gets out a whole brace of them throughout playoffs, gets to absolutely stomp people. And this is against people like Cog too back then, who still played for Russell Jessen, was an incredibly strong top laner, even on that roster. Now, this guy has incredibly high peaks. But if you give a nullifying champion over to the other side and say, oh, just chuck him on Gnar, it'll be fine. I mean, yes, you see pressure going out there, but you never get to shut them completely out the game, nor do you get to completely run over the lane either, which might have given CJ, again, just another angle to try and find the miracle team fight, because they're actually winning some side lanes. As much as CJ and the rest of the LJL don't really like playing side lanes, it would have been another option. I would have loved to see that adaptation.
Yeah, but with that, you've got to look at, well, what champions are you going to be able to put on those side lanes to actually generate that pressure? What do these players feel comfortable on? We see, for example, I think the big one we talked about coming into this for our top lane is Gwen, right?
Yep.
Like for Inno, I think he's got 2 games of Gwen under his belt, and
Something like that.
And Nap has 6. And Nap, I can't remember if the Gwen was banned. I'm going to assume she was.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it? Oh,
it was left up.
Very surprised then that they opted that Renekton.
So I mean, Gwen is the top laners on both teams, most play champion. 6 for Nap, 4 for Inno. This is the new patch, of course. I believe it is on 11.15. And that's just like at that point you're thinking, oh, maybe it's just the early game impact and stuff like that. But again, you know that you're just going to reach the late game team fighting state anyway. It's not like it's completely out of matter. Either way, that's a big change for both these top laners. And you're right, it does take away an AP damage threat. It does take away one of the comfort champions for both of these teams. And again, more adaptation to be had.
Yeah, and the last bit of adaptation that I really think it's worth looking at is the bottom lane. And specifically, that's not who you're thinking. I'm talking about Nahun here. Now, the reason why I say that is obviously Nahun, for as good of a mid laner that they are, and I think it's fair to say that they are a damn good mid laner because we've talked about them so often throughout the season. As a support player, I wasn't sold when we saw the Rakan and the shakeup. I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, he's off. It's an off roll. That's fine. But the Trundle today is a worrying trend because yes, Denku's got a great pull, but where is the Leona? Where is the Braum? Where is the Nautilus? Is he
Thresh
capable
ever
of
going to
playing
be
these
contested?
champions?
Because I mean, there are plenty of champions which it's not easy to just plug and play Thresh. You even if you are a skilled mechanical player, it's very difficult to do that at a professional level. So I think actually you're right. The support pool could be a big issue, particularly if Nemo's not being contested on those picks. You have to ban away them instead of picking them yourself. That can be a huge factor in this draft. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a little alarming. And I think for game 2, I think draft is going to be one of, if not the most important thing coming into it, right? We need to see, what does CGA ban? Because there's a lot of things that we've discussed that they need to go on the bench. And unfortunately, it's only 3 wide at the start. You can't catch everything. So you have to say, well, was Hogwarts Viego really did we just mismanage it? Or is it truly something worth banning? Do we have something other than MF?
Yeah. And then it's like, would it have been just as bad on Diana? Would it have been just as bad on Jinzao? Well, yes, probably. That's the problem, right? You're still going to have huge, solo pop-up potential from the jungle. So lots of different questions. Not a huge amount of answers I can see ready and appropriate for them. So CGA, maybe they just flip the table, flip the script.
Yeah, well, CGA, they've got a little bit of time to plan it out. And speaking of time, we will be going to Eva. I'm pretty sure we're going to a quick break and then going right back to Desk. Am I reading that right? Or am I can't tell.
I believe we're going to a quick break.
All right, we'll go to a quick break, guys, at the LJL OU. But when we come back, it will be Desk time to look at game number 1 between the likes of CGA and Axiz. And, of course, prep time for game number 2.